Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup, Monday, November 29th, 2021. Hope everybody's having an okay day. Uh, Quite a lot going on, actually. It is right after Thanksgiving, heading into the holidays. So, not the sometimes what they call the doldrums in the news business, but we're still going. Status Coup strong. And I wanted to touch on some corporate media propaganda today. I wanted to touch on some corporate media propaganda today. So I'm going to wait till we have more folks trickle in to the live stream. Smash that like button. Share this live stream if you can. Uh, the like button is right under the video, and the share button is right there too. You could post on your own social media that we're live. Unfortunately, YouTube does not recommend this channel often, nor do they even notify most of our subscribers when we're live. So I need you guys to do the dirty work for me. Obviously, there's stuff going on in the news with a new COVID variant. They're calling it Omicron. So not really going to get into that because I don't really think there's enough information or data. But obviously, there's been border closings and travel restrictions. So I will follow that as we go. Pretty much, you have a lot of what I think is Democratic Party spin going on out there to kind of try to explain away President Biden's low approval numbers, the Republicans' victories in Virginia, and Republican victories elsewhere on Election Day a couple of weeks ago, trying to explain away, the sinking poll numbers for Democrats, Biden, and Republicans. So we're going to get into a lot of that today, focusing on one article in particular, because I read most of this article, and it's like, you really have to wonder if the folks who write, like give their opinion in the corporate media, whether they genuinely believe most of what they write, or if they're just really, really delusional and have no connection to reality on the ground in America. And one of those writers, I think it's safe to say, is Jonathan Chait with New York Magazine. So we're going to get into a piece he wrote because I think it really speaks volumes. I think it really speaks volumes on the propaganda and complete just alternative reality that a lot of people in the media and their allies in the corporate Democratic Party believe. So we're going to get into that minute. Smash that like button. Share this live stream. Also, interestingly, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey stepped down. So a lot of folks think that Jack Dorsey stepping down is going to usher in a new unprecedented era of censorship on Twitter. So we will see what happens there. So let me get started. Hold on one second. Did we? We are not gonna push the member switch. Sorry, one second, guys. Switch. All right. So, Colin, if you could pop up, and I'm going to read quite a bit of this article because I think it's important. If you could pop up the New York Magazine article written by Jonathan Chait. And if you don't know, Jonathan Chait is a trusted journalistic soldier for the Democratic Party. He's been pushing a lot of the neoliberal Democratic Party talking points of the last 20 years for New York Magazine. Kind of bills himself as progressive, but not really. So the headline here, Joe Biden's big squeeze, with, his head being squeezed by multiple sides. Joe Biden's big squeeze. Progressive donors to the left of him. Cynical centrists to the right. A theory of why his popular agenda is so unpopular. I found that interesting just in the headline because, who are these wealthy progressive donors to the left of Joe Biden? Does he mean progressive voters? I don't really know if there's wealthy progressive donors out there who are actually progressive. feel free to reach out to Status Coup. We do on the ground reporting and would love your money if you're progressive. We don't really want neoliberal usual suspects. But I love the headline of progressive donors to the left of him, cynical centrists to the right, a theory of why his popular agenda is so unpopular. So I have news for you. And we'll drop the article in the super chat. I don't know if you could read it because, like most of these sites, New York Magazine, they limit you after a few free articles. So there's the article. But I usually don't read full articles and respond, but I really wanted to read this one because it kind of just shows you that, like in 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost to an orange orangutan used car salesman, instead of actually looking at the real reason she lost, 30 years of neoliberalism, NAFTA, which Trump weaponized in his campaign against Hillary Clinton, and the Democratic Party and Bill Clinton pushing NAFTA, which completely deindustrialized the country, which made whole sections of the country pretty much economic wastelands, which morphed middle-class people in the Midwest and other parts of the country from a situation where one parent could work, the other one could stay home, they could go on a vacation once a year, didn't have to mortgage their liver to pay for college. But then the jobs got sent offshore, and it ended up where people who used to be able to make a good middle-class living ended up now having to work multiple jobs at less pay. So instead of addressing that after 2016, they did a new Cold War and blamed Russia, and the Democratic Party actually moved further to the right and got very lucky. And Joe Biden got very lucky that he was facing a president that badly mangled a deadly pandemic. If not for Trump badly mismanaging the pandemic, we'd probably still have President Trump. And yes, super chats are very welcome. So this article is kind of coming up with excuses. And it's not just this article, by the way. There's been other articles in the New York Times recently and elsewhere that are kind of coming up with excuses trying to explain Biden's, approval rating sinking, his poll numbers sinking, the Democratic Party's fortune sinking. And again, you just have to wonder, do they just not get it, or are they lying? So let's read a little bit of this. And we'll start and stop and smash that like button. We got 130 people watching right now. 75 have pressed the like button. So we need a lot more people to press that like button. Robert Jordan, that's an insult to used car salesman. Good point. Jonathan Shade has mashed potatoes for brains. Another good point. So it is scarcely an exaggeration to say that the fate of American democracy may hinge on President Joe Biden's success. So right there, this article's bullshit because it pretends that we actually live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy. There's been studies from Princeton and elsewhere that show policies that have overwhelming majority of support only get through very, very little of barely get through. Whereas policies that are supported by the elite, by the donors, almost always go through. So you can't really say we have a democracy when popular public sentiment almost is never enacted. I digress. If his approval rating sinks too far below 50%, it becomes more likely than not that the next election will reinstall into power his exiled predecessor, who has never relinquished his claim and, by all appearances, is intent on running for a second term. Speaking of Trump, the Democrats had a plan to rescue their party and the country. Really? Biden would steer clear of the faddish slogans and radical demands that had seized his party's base and focus relentlessly on practical benefits desired by the working class voters who had deserted Democrats for Donald Trump. The elegance of this plan was that polls showed support not only for the new social provisions that would form the heart of his legislative agenda in his first year, childcare, community college, expansions of Medicare and Medicaid, and so on, but also for the sources of their funding. The money would come from taxing the rich, bargaining down the cost of prescription drugs, and going after wealthy tax cheats. So I want to address something here. He says Biden would stay away from the faddish slogans and the radical demands that had seized his party's base and focused relentlessly on practical benefits. So then he points to a lot of these quote unquote practical benefits that Biden was going to go after. community college, expanding Medicare, this and that, have popular support in the polls. Well, you know what else has popular support in the polls? Medicare for all. You know what else? In every single Democratic primary, each state, even states that Bernie lost, had majority support. Medicare for all. How's that for practicality? So this Jonathan Chait seems to be dubbing things like Medicare for all as radical, even though Medicare for all polls incredibly well. But instead of pointing out the things that poll incredibly well, Medicare for all, free public college, ending private prisons, banning fracking, major, bold change. He points to these small ball incremental things like free community college, expanding Medicare, this and that. Those are practical. Those more incremental, small change things, those are practical. The things that also have overwhelming popular support, Medicare for all, free public college, banning fracking, ending the wars, cutting the military budget, those are radical. You see how he does that? You see how he does that? And keep smashing the like button. Almost 200 people watching. 119 of you have pressed the like button. Okay, let's go further. So this was the vision that entranced liberals in the heady months after Biden's inauguration. He would usher in a new deal, a new deal. That's funny. He would usher in a new deal that would end the long Reagan era in which Republicans painted government as an enemy of normal Americans. The Democrats seemed to have the means to do it. Control of Congress, a pandemic-induced national emergency that cried out for robust government intervention, and relative unanimity, I hate that word, unanimity between their warring wings. 11 months into his term and a year after a midterm election that appears likely to end his legislative majority, the cold reality for Biden is that his presidency is on the brink of failure. Business lobbyists swarmed over Washington, ripping chunks out of his Build Back Better program. The scope of his agenda kept shrinking in tandem with his poll numbers. Initially, the drop seemed attributable to temporary factors. Maybe the cause was the Delta wave that crested this past summer. Maybe it was the media freak out over his ham-handed Afghanistan withdrawal. But even as those events receded from the headlines, Biden's numbers continued to drop, along with the fortunes of his party, which lost control of the governorship in Virginia in November and badly underperformed elsewhere. So I want to drill into this part because this gave me a chuckle. So he says the cold reality is the Biden presidency is on the brink of failure. In the next sentence, business lobbyists swarmed over Washington, ripping chunks out of Biden's Build Back Better program. Well, clearly, Biden couldn't do anything about this, right? He's the janitor in the White House. He's not the president. Biden can't swat away business lobbyists. Biden can't swat away heavy, wealthy donors who are watering down and stripping down the Build Back Better plan, which was originally supposed to be $3.5 trillion. No, he's just kind of a spectator watching as the business lobbyists come in and torpedo his legislation, his new deal, which it was not even close to the new deal or the original New Deal. Of course, you love how they write like Biden is somehow a spectator and was just watching. Biden was just a spectator and was just watching this. Nobody can say with any confidence if this fall could be reversed. Indeed, given the U.S. steady job growth, nobody could ascertain exactly why the public has turned so sour so fast. Biden is like a patient wasting away from some undiagnosable disease. What is clear is that if the presidential election were held this fall, Biden would enter the contest as the decided underdog against Trump. So since Jonathan Chait here says, given the U.S.'s steady job growth, nobody could ascertain exactly why the public has turned so sour so fast. Well, since Jonathan Chait, and he says Biden is like a patient wasting away from some undiagnosable disease. Well, let me diagnose it. since apparently Jonathan Chait doesn't know how or can't understand what's going on here. First of all, and this is a common thing that I've talked about here at Status Coup for many years, when they talk about the unemployment rate going down or GDP growth expanding, to them, because Jonathan Chait and others who write for outlets like the New York Times, New York Magazine, the Washington Post, the Daily Beast, CNN, Politico, all them, they live in their cosmopolitan bubble. They're all doing very, very well. They rarely leave their cosmopolitan bubble, even when they cover presidential campaigns, which I've covered too on the ground, thanks to you funding us, Status Coup. By the way, become a member right under the video, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. Colin and I are working on something in the background, by the way. So we'll have an announcement on that probably tomorrow, because I don't think it's ready yet. But we're going to try and get all of you people, all of you Status Coup members that are current Status Coup members, to switch over to our brand new membership site. So we'll probably announce that tomorrow or at some point this week, how you could do that. Colin's putting together a video. So that means people who are signed up or did sign up at our original membership site, we're going to try and switch you over to the new membership site. So stay tuned for that. Don't do anything yet. But it's amazing when they talk about how the economy is coming back, because I don't know if they're actually out there talking to people. I don't know if they actually, what they really determine or what to them or Jonathan Chait is a strong economy. If it's just unemployment going down, which, if you know anything, is often going down because people are dropping out of the workforce, not getting jobs. So when people drop out of the workforce, they're not counted under unemployment. But it's humorous when he says the economy is coming back, because if you've actually looked at the jobs reports that have come out as cases have gone down of COVID, things have reopened. Obviously, there's this new variant right now, which, we don't have a lot of information on, Omicron. But as jobs have come back, if it's like a car and you look underneath the hood, the majority of those jobs that have come back are the same shitty non-living wage jobs that people had before the pandemic. So those jobs that have come back, the overwhelming majority of jobs that have come back are in the hospitality industry. Hotels, restaurants, bars, things like that. I'm not trying to disrespect those jobs. Kudos to people who work those jobs. But these are not vibrant, high-paying jobs with great benefits. These are paycheck-to-paycheck type jobs that have come back. So those people that have gotten those jobs back, who, by the way, many of whom might have been evicted during this pandemic, because as we broke on the ground, thanks to you funding us at statuscoup.com/join, our members funding us, we broke we went on the road for 2 weeks over the summer. We broke that the eviction moratorium that was supposed to be stopping people from being evicted throughout the pandemic was like Swiss cheese. It was so thin. There were loopholes throughout that eviction moratorium that people were getting evicted throughout the pandemic. They might have been covered if they couldn't pay financially, but they were getting evicted for other reasons that landlords found, like unkept grass or bogus nuisance violations, things like that. So a lot of people got their jobs back, are going back to the same non-living paycheck to paycheck jobs, or were evicted during the pandemic, or were promised $2,000 checks from Biden and the Democrats, or were promised a $15 minimum wage. Remember, Biden ran on pretty much no economic policy other than restoring the soul of America, whatever the hell that meant, and a $15 minimum wage. Literally 5 minutes into his presidency, he unilaterally disarmed on a $15 minimum wage. So Jonathan Chait, what did he call it? Colin, if you could go back to this. Biden is like a patient wasting away from some undiagnosable disease. And it's just undiagnosable. Jobs are coming back. Things are bouncing back, but his polls are so low. Well, let's diagnose it, shall we? and I'm not trying to be a bitter Berry here. I'm not just trying to bash Biden for the hell of it. There's clear, identifiable things that Biden promised, that the Democrats promised, that they're not doing. And frankly, Bernie, progressives in the House, the squad, haven't fought hard enough against Biden for. Let's start again. Do you think Biden's poll numbers would be sinking like they're sinking if he had pushed for a $15 minimum wage and it got enacted? By the way, it wouldn't have been $15 right away. They would have incrementally increased it where you would have got $15 minimum wage. I think it was in 2026 or something like that. So it would have started out going up from the starvation minimum wage of $7.25 federally, I think, to $8.50 and then $9 something and on and on. So you think his poll numbers would be sinking if $15 minimum wage were enacted? I don't think so. You think his poll numbers would be sinking if he followed through on a public option for healthcare? Which, by the way, a public option is not enough. We need Medicare for all. But do you think clear, direct, follow through on his promises? Do you think his poll numbers would be sinking the way they're sinking? Jonathan Chait, something he leaves out of this article, Biden won largely because more black voters came out in Atlanta, Georgia, which gave him the state of Georgia. More black voters came out in Detroit, Michigan, gave him the state of Michigan. More black voters came out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, helped give him the state of Wisconsin. Well, Biden also made a lot of promises to those black people, including police reform, whatever police reform means. Well, as soon as Biden got in, what happened? Biden and the Democratic Party started stripping down police reform to the bones, down to the bone. And what was removed from it? Everything. Qualified immunity, revoking qualified immunity, which is the main teeth of any serious police reform, stripped out. That would take away police officers' civil protections so that police officers can be sued civilly, just like a doctor who performs malpractice. That was taken out of Democrats' police reform. Keep those super chats coming. I'll read them at the end of the live stream. That was taken out. So you got no $15 minimum wage, no $2,000 checks, no public option, no police reform. He said he was going to ban drilling on public lands. Didn't do that either. Undiagnosable. The problem is undiagnosable, we're told, by Jonathan Chait. By the way, in Virginia in particular, a big reason that Terry McAuliffe lost was the schools, not critical race theory, which frankly isn't even taught in schools. It's a bullshit, bogus talking point by the right wing to fight a culture war. But Democrats had closed the schools, and a lot of parents in Virginia felt they were closed too long. Parents didn't have the proper resources for virtual learning. Parents had to be workers and instructors and everything and beyond. So in Virginia in particular, there were, besides Terry McAuliffe, basically being a neoliberal hack who wasn't running on anything bold either. That's why Democrats lost in Virginia. But you want to know something? You think it could have helped Terry McAuliffe or if any of the things I just described had been executed? I want to also bring this article too. Colin, if you could do it from the Associated Press. High inflation, ? Low polling, ? White House blames the pandemic. Inflation is soaring. Businesses are struggling to hire, and President Joe Biden's poll numbers have been in free fall. The White House sees a common culprit for it all: COVID-19. Biden's team views the pandemic as the root cause of both the nation's morass and his own political woes. Finally, controlling COVID-19, the White House believes, is the skeleton key to rejuvenating the country and reviving Biden's own standing. But the coronavirus challenge has proved to be vexing for the White House, with last summer's premature claims of victory swamped by the more transmissible Delta variant, millions of Americans going unvaccinated, and lingering economic effects from the pandemic's darkest days. All of that as yet another variant of the virus, Omicron, emerged overseas. It is worrying public health officials, leading to new travel bans. Although the economy has actually been coming back, there are multiple signs that COVID-19 will leave its scars even if the pandemic fades. So here's some more bullshit for you. And don't get me wrong, people are fed up with the coronavirus pandemic. I'm not even getting into the vaccine or any of that crap right now. People are fed up, whether it's Biden's fault or not. Obvious, in my view, Trump badly bungled this pandemic. He did not treat it seriously. He put out dangerous misinformation constantly. He made masks and not really vaccines, but he made masks and social distancing into a culture war when it's really a public health issue. But frankly, Biden, sure, people are pissed off about COVID, but that's not why his poll numbers are so strong. This is the equivalent. What's going on now is the equivalent of, a man or a woman is courted by somebody of the opposite sex, the beginning stages of your dating. And it's a nice courtship and you only see the best of the person. And they present themselves as passionate and caring and want to change, and you are very attracted to them because of their passion and the promises they make to you, and the vision they give you of the kind of life they want to lead with you and the relationship they want to form with you and this and that. And then you commit, whatever, you get exclusive or whatever. And then a couple weeks in, you're not hearing from them as much. Couple weeks in, oh, yeah, those promises I made you, whatever. Yeah, I'm really busy with work. I've got some family stuff going on. I got some things from the past I'm still working through. Excuses, no follow through. And the portrait that you were painted that made you attracted to this person in the first place, i.e. pulling the lever and voting for them, yes, the honeymoon phase, ends up being just that, a crap portrait. That's what's going on here. The truth is, Biden, the media, the Democratic establishment, they brought his lifeless body across the finish line and were gifted a unprecedented pandemic with a president that was asleep at the switch and thought if he just pretends it's not happening, it'll go away. And people, his base will come out. Well, unfortunately, his base wasn't enough. And Biden, again, benefited from Trump fatigue, a lot of black voters that did not come out for Hillary Clinton in 2016, coming out for him in 2020. Again, not because of Biden. People like Jonathan Chait and the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and all these people, they like to pretend that voters voted for moderation. And Biden's mandate was not FDR, but a return to normalcy. And that voters really only wanted just some tinkering around with the edges. But aside from policy, they just wanted to come down from the high. They wanted peace. They wanted calm. But of course, that's gaslighting. That's not why people voted for Joe Biden. In fact, it's very possible people would have voted for an alien over Donald Trump. It's very possible people would have voted for me over Donald Trump. It's very possible that people would have voted for a paper bag if that paper bag was eligible. It had nothing to do with moderation. It's not only very possible, it's obvious people chose Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders because the corporate media gaslit the whole masses that Biden was the only one that could defeat Donald Trump, and that the American people, no, a socialist and somebody who wants universal health care and these kind of things, that's too much for people in the Midwest and the swing voters and all that. But the reality is none of that is true. People are complicated. People don't vote for any one reason, but most people in America, even right-wing people, are working class people, including black and brown people. And most people, if you actually give them direct help structurally, protections, expand the social safety net, increase their wages, increase their benefits, that will take precedent over the culture war. That will take precedent over the culture war. But Biden hasn't done any of that. And what Jonathan Chait, how he tries to present it, and I read you that line, that business lobbyists swarmed Washington and stripped down the Build Back Better plan. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Do you remember one press conference where Joe Biden said, no, here are my red lines as president of the United States, and Senator Manchin is going to have to look outside the window at public opinion because expanding Medicare to dental, vision, and hearing, overwhelming support. And universal pre-K, overwhelming support. And experts are telling us we need upwards of trillions of dollars for climate change. And we're not going to strip climate provisions into this down in this bill, strip it down essentially to tax incentives, which is what it was stripped down to. And XYZ other as president, this is what I promise, and this is what we're going to deliver. And if Joe Manchin wants to fight it, then he's going to have to explain to the American people while he's depriving the masses who overwhelmingly support those things. Do you remember a press conference with Biden saying those things? Because I don't. I remember Biden basically preemptively telling Manchin and Sinema, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. And don't you worry about those progressives. They'll come along. That's what happened. Biden didn't fight for anything. So I don't want to hear from Jonathan Chait or other corporate gaslighters that, oh no, it was just business lobbyists who came in and stripped this down to the bare bones. Let me read a little bit more from Jonathan Chait's delusional propaganda. The conventional wisdom has deemed that Biden is getting his just desserts for trying to govern as a liberal. Quote, the concerns of more centrist Americans about a rush to spend taxpayer money, a rush to grow the government, should not be dismissed, scolded a New York Times editorial. Biden misread his moderate mandate. Concluded Matt Lewis at the Daily Beast, while Maureen Dowd at the Times declared that the Democrats, quote, overweening efforts in Congress were, quote, putting off many voters who are still struggling just to get by. Oh, I don't even know where to start with these three ridiculous things. First of all, the concerns of more centrist Americans about a rush to spend taxpayer money. The majority of Americans don't give a shit how big a spending bill is. And polls that the media uses to pretend that they do give a shit, polls and the wording of polls are often manipulated to get people to care, to make it seem like they care if we're spending too much. Most people don't care if we're spending too much. Most people care that working people are getting relief from that spending and that the wealthy are paying for the bill. That's what most people care about. So that's ridiculous that, the concerns of more centrist Americans. The centrist Americans are the minority. They're not the majority. Okay? Policy by policy, people are progressive. Then they say Biden misread his moderate mandate. I've already addressed that. He didn't have a moderate mandate. His mandate was defeat Trump. It didn't matter whether it was moderate or not. People got sucked in by the media gaslighting that Biden was the only one that could do it because he's pragmatic and blah, blah, blah. There was no moderate mandate. There was a moderate to beat Donald Trump. That was the mandate. And then Maureen Dowd at the Times declared Biden's overweening efforts in Congress were putting off many voters who are still struggling just to get by. I got news for Maureen Dowd. I don't think the voters that came out during a pandemic in both primaries and the general election, I don't think what turned them off was the overweening efforts, so to speak, to expand Medicare or increase the $15 minimum wage, which Biden didn't even try, or do a public option, which Biden didn't even try, or actually spend real money on climate change, because $500 billion is half a Band-Aid to a gaping gunshot wound in terms of the climate inferno we're facing, or banning fracking, or paid leave that is comparable to other countries. We're talking, 12 to 20 weeks in other countries. I think why people were kind of turned off is they came out under the sales job that if we just get rid of Trump, we could build back better. We got to get rid of Trump first and the fascist threat, and then Democrats in full control are going to finally deliver structural, big scale changes. You remember the pieces at the beginning of the Biden administration comparing him to FDR. But what happened? Pretty much what happened under President Obama. When Obama came in, similar economic crisis, the 2008-9 financial crash, Biden, the COVID pandemic, which was also is an economic crisis as well. And what did Biden do? He just started preemptively negotiating against himself, using laughable excuses and rationalizations like, I can't actually deliver my signature policy, my signature campaign promise of a $15 minimum wage because an unelected bureaucrat, a parliamentarian, says I can't. Stop talking about a public option, cut out police reform, and allowed Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to basically become co-presidents. Why? Because he agrees with them, because he doesn't actually support policies that the majority of Americans support, even Republicans support. And he wanted to use Manchin, Sinema, and the moderates, they're not moderates, they're corrupt extremists, as cover for the fact that he doesn't really have any strong beliefs in progressive change. He's not really pro-union. Notice he hasn't said much about the workers successfully striking around the country. We just covered the John Deere strikes on the ground in Iowa and Illinois. They got a contract. We just covered, we've covered on the ground the Starbucks workers trying to form a union. They're still fighting, and the union vote in Buffalo for Starbucks union is already underway. Ballots were sent out. Or the hospital strikes that are underway. We spoke with the nurses in Buffalo, the Mercy Hospital nurses. They just got a contract. The St. Vincent Hospital workers in Massachusetts, they're still striking after 7-8 months, I believe. But Biden, he's not a dictator. He can't do everything, but he could have fought for a variety of these things. He could have publicly went to battle with Joe Manchin, with Kyrsten Sinema, with any of the folks trying to water this down and publicly use the bully pulpit. There's been plenty of articles and information out there about executive actions he could take, but he hasn't done any of that. So, when you make say what you want about Trump, but he made promises as a candidate and he followed through on a lot of those promises. A lot of them were terrible, awful things, but he followed through. Biden has not followed through. Biden has not followed through on the variety of things that I just listed. So what happens? Turnout gets depressed. What happens? People that came out for you, that the black voters, young voters, they become dejected and deflated by you. They say, well, I did what I had to do to get rid of Trump. Biden and the Democrats are giving me lip service. They're not actually following through on any of the promises they made. Oh, by the way, let's not forget, Biden and the Democratic Congress could have fought not for an eviction moratorium, for rent forgiveness, for direct government funding to pay tenants directly or pay landlords directly. Hundreds of billions of dollars were sent. I think $45 to $50 billion was sent out that was supposed to go towards rental relief, pay landlords, cover the tenants who couldn't afford the rent during the pandemic. It's sitting in state capitals. It's sitting in state treasury offices. Have never been dispersed. Let's not forget, on Labor Day, Biden allowed the federal unemployment expansion to lapse. So the federal unemployment expansion, gone on Labor Day of all times. Hold on. So all of these things that he has not followed through on, basically lying in fetal position as Manchin and Sinema and other Democrats who were against these. By the way, most of the things in this Build Back Better plan, the $3.5 trillion reconciliation deal, they're basically moderate compared to what the rest of the world has. Paid family leave, money to address the climate crisis, universal pre-K, Medicare negotiating drug prices. These aren't like radical things. These are moderate things that are basic standards of living and ways of life in other civilized countries. So it's kind of laughable at this point that you have Biden and his media allies trying to like, well, gee, gosh, darn it. Gee, gosh, jolly. Why is it that Biden's numbers are going down and the Democrats are in a funk, even though the jobs are coming back, even though the unemployment number's going down? Because it's all a mirage. Those jobs are mostly non-living wage jobs. They don't have security. Their benefits suck. Most of them are below minimum wage. A lot of them are based on tips. A lot of those workers are still digging out of the grave of the pandemic. They're far, far behind on their bills because maybe they were able to afford rent, but they fell behind in other payments. They work more than one job. They drive Lyft or Uber on the side. It's crazy. And by the way, just to answer, I saw somebody, no, I did not change YouTube's dislike button. Apparently YouTube changed it where you can't see the number of how many people dislike something. It's good psychologically, I guess, because it makes it look, you can't know how many people disliked. But I think it is a little too snowflakey that, if you're a public figure on YouTube, you have, everybody's human. You should, people get upset if everybody's hating on one of your takes or a video you do or whatever. But I don't know if I like getting rid of the dislike button to see how many people dislike. But just to answer you, that's not something I disabled. That's YouTube across the board. And then you get to the inflation problem, which Paul just mentioned in the super chat. And keep those super chats coming, by the way. I'll read them at the end of the stream. Inflation is a problem. But guess what? Biden, he's refusing to actually call out the corporate scum that are actually price gouging right now. A lot of this inflation, and More Perfect Union, who does good work, and others, Steve Grumbine, I've had him on from Real Progressives, they explain that the inflation, a lot of it, is not coming from, these companies, their prices have gone up from their suppliers, so they pass it off to the worker bees. No. A lot of them, their prices have gone up a little bit, and they're passing it off to the worker bees times 5, 6, 7, called price gouging. So, yeah, inflation is a problem, but that's not, to me, the main reason people have turned against Biden and the Democrats. It's very simple. Human psychology is not a very complicated thing. All you got to do is go back 80 years. When times were very, very tough economically, guess what? Franklin Delano Roosevelt wasn't perfect, did some things that were bad. He said, the government's going to step in here and we're going to create systemic new programs to help working class people. He had to die. The only way that he could lose is if he died. He would have won re-election till the end of time because the workers knew he was on their side. By the way, besides Hillary Clinton being a crummy-ass candidate, you don't think 2016 had something to do with 8 years of President Obama? Basically, again, Obama and the Democrats negotiating against themselves, whittling down the mandate that they had for universal health care, for wide-scale, big, bold programs to a Republican health care plan, doubling down on the Afghanistan war, small ball neoliberal tax incentives and things like that. And Biden deserves credit for some things. I could give him credit for some things. The 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill had some good things in there. It was all temporary. So imagine all these talking points about the child tax credit. We cut child poverty in half. Yeah, for 12 months. But we allowed in the law for it to be temporary. Just like Biden would not fight in this Build Back Better plan for a permanent child tax credit, which actually would make a difference to a lot of poor and middle-class families. Why? Because he doesn't passionately believe in these things, because he's not willing to fight Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, and the moderates, who, by the way, aren't moderates, they're extremists. And guess what? Here's the thing that you will never hear in the New York Times, that you will never hear in the Washington Post, that you will never hear from Jonathan Chait in New York Magazine. Biden won't actually get up there in a press conference and fight Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema and say, I am the president and here are my red lines, because he doesn't want to piss off the donors. Because right now, Biden and the Democrats are 100% focused on 2022. And a lot of the donors don't want these structural changes. They don't want Medicare to have vision, dental, and hearing, because if you give an inch, the workers might want more and might expect more. That's the sick psychology we deal with in the United Corporations of America, as you can see behind me. The capitalist class, the United Corporations of America, they don't want to give an inch, because if they give a real inch, the people are going to say, well, if we could have this, why can't we have more? People work hard. Most Americans work hard. I want to show you some of an interview Nina Turner did over the weekend too, because I think a lot of the things Nina Turner was saying kind of mimic what I am saying here. And whatever, not everybody, some people fell out of favor with Nina Turner during her campaign. She wasn't scorched earth enough for your taste, whatever. I think a lot of the things she says here are accurate and kind of support the argument I'm making today. Let's take a look. We won't play the whole thing, but let's take a look at some of Nina Turner yesterday.
Out of it right now.
I think that Democrats are really overestimating the political gain that they can get from passing this bill. It's going to be much less important for their political fortunes than what happens to the price of gas. Now, we've seen over the last month an adjustment in the Democratic message where they're talking about inflation and they're talking about this big spending bill as a way of addressing inflation. But it just doesn't smell right to most people. It's not a bill that anybody would have put together if your primary goal was addressing inflation. It just doesn't sound right to say, well, the way we address the problem of the moment is by doing all the things we wanted to do before it was a big problem. And I think presidents get into trouble when what they're most concerned about is not what the public is most concerned about.
But people are concerned about those issues, though. All of those issues, whether it's, 2-year college, pre-K, universal health care, making sure that we expand Medicaid for our elders. People agree with those issues. I will say I didn't hear the complaints about inflation when within the CARE Act, the PPP, massive amount of money going to corporate America, but nobody was screaming about inflation. We talk about inflation when these programs are designed to help the people who have the greatest needs. What I do agree is that we got to give people something they can feel. And so the people inside the bubble can celebrate and slap happy and pat each other on the back and say, we've done a good job. And again, until the people who need it the most start to feel it, it doesn't matter. But talk about messes. I mean, Republicans have no standing in talking about.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Just to add, Nina, I just want to point out the fact that Republicans are talking about inflation in terms of a gold mine. I think that, and you have Democrats trying to solve it. They're actually trying to give checks to people, put money in people's pockets, while Republicans are here trying to run on it as a campaign issue. People are hurting. Biden was put in power to fix things. What is he doing? He's working on fixing them, getting us back from this pandemic. We had a jobs report that we're at 4.6 unemployment. Experts did not believe that that was going to happen for another 2 years. Our economy is coming back. Supply does not meet demand, and Biden is fixing it, while you have Republicans complaining it and trying to benefit off of the American people.
Let's not give a big tax breaks to the ultra wealthy in this country. The second highest expense in the B to the third power is the SALT. And as far as paid family and medical leave, I mean, we are the United States of America. If other industrialized nations can do that, we should do it too. You want to talk about inflation? Let's deal with the things that will help people get back into the workplace. That's universal, universal pre-K, child care, elder care, those kinds of things matter. And until Big Mama is feeling like government is working, it's not working.
And then, Nina, I want to bring you in because you worked very hard for Bernie Sanders in the primary. He is going to be the one putting together this Build Back Better bill in the Senate. And he's not thrilled with some of the things that passed in the House. He's not thrilled with the fact that it doesn't look like paid family leave is going to be in there. And in the next segment, I'm going to talk to Congressman Scott Geinheimer, who's a moderate Democrat, who says he needs the SALT tax deduction, the state and local tax deduction in there. But Senator Sanders, and I'm guessing you don't love that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, one of the things that the senators talked about is let's really analyze this and look at if there are families, I think he said 400,000 and lower, let's do something about that, but let's not give a big tax breaks to the ultra wealthy in this country. The second highest expense in the B to the third power is the SALT. And as far as paid family and medical leave, I mean, we are the United States of America. If other industrialized nations can do that, we should do it too. You want to talk about inflation? Let's deal with the things that will help people get back into the workplace. That's universal, universal pre-K, child care, elder care. Those kinds of things matter. And until Big Mama is feeling like government is working.
So Nina Turner, whatever. People could think what they want. I think she was unfairly attacked in a lot of ways. But, you don't have to love her. You like or don't like whoever you want. But she said something that's kind of simple, right? People need to feel change. They need to feel economically that you're helping them. What has really Biden done? What has Biden done for the masses? Again, the jobs that are coming back are non-living wage jobs. They are the same crap jobs that were there before the pandemic. They went away during the pandemic. Now they're coming back as the pandemic fluctuates and cases and deaths go down and more people get vaccinated. So these are not, it's not like, there's been modest wage increases in certain areas, particularly because of these workers that are striking. Sorry. But I mean, people have had no structural change. You might see, if you are Joe Biden, you're the Democratic Party, your fortunes rapidly change if you give people universal pre-K. It's in the bill. We'll see if it passes. If you give people actual paid family leave, not 4 weeks, and that program is a bureaucratic nightmare that's going to go through private insurance to get your 4 weeks of paid leave. If you increase the minimum wage, it is now 12 years since an increase in the minimum wage. You want to talk about inflation that's been going on that the media never covers? Gentrification, which I call economic terrorism. Economic terrorism is gentrification. That type of inflation has been going on for decades. Apartment prices going up, housing prices going up. Just to live in the cities, or surrounding areas, if you were born in Cleveland or Detroit or Flint or Milwaukee or Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or Chicago or San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, I could go on and on. Can you live there anymore if you're a working class person? Barely. No, people have been pushed out. No, the media doesn't like talking about that inflation. Which, by the way, most of those prices have gotten jacked up because real estate developers and high-priced political donors have bought the politicians. So that's just one piece, by the way. That's just one piece. Then you have, Colin, if you have this one, it's the New York Times piece I sent you, titled "The Disconnect Between Biden's Popular Policies and His Unpopularity." So this is another one. I'm not going to read this one. It's another one that's trying to explain, like the New York Magazine and the New York Times, they're trying to explain why is it that the policies Biden is pushing are so popular, but he's unpopular. I don't want to say gas prices don't matter at all. I don't want to say, high inflation doesn't matter at all. Of course it matters. That's why one of the big reasons Jimmy Carter lost in 1980. But that's not the whole picture. Remember, gas prices went up while President Obama was president. He was elected president twice. You could still be popular. Your ratings could continue to be steady with short-term pain. But if you're not providing the structural change, the structural programmatic change, what you see is what you're going to get. And if you have an extremist right-wing party pushing culture wars from masks to vaccines to Kyle Rittenhouse, let's just face it, the right wing has seized on Kyle Rittenhouse as a culture war. To Black Lives Matter is the culture war, to critical race theory. They're not pushing anything economically because they too are corrupt and bought off. But if you have a Democratic Party that's just going to run on things with marketing slogans like Build Back Better and, raising wages for workers, and we're the party of the working people, and then time after time, whether it's Bill Clinton, whether it's Barack Obama, whether it's slow Joe Biden, they're just going to tinker around the edges, constantly find the reason and make excuses. Oh, when Obama had almost a supermajority, oh, it was those few senators who obstructed. Or Biden, oh, we only have a 50-50 Senate. Stop the bullshit. If Biden wanted to fight for these policies, he could fight for these policies. Did you want to know something? People like a fighter. That's part of why Trump's base likes him. A lot of the things he's fighting for are morally repugnant, but they like that he's a fighter. They like that he's willing to fight for that wall, that he's willing to fight, to keep critical race theory out of schools, that he's willing to fight, to get rid of NAFTA, even though the new NAFTA is basically the same as the old NAFTA. What is Biden fighting for? Nothing. Even if you don't win right away, people like a fighter. And I got news for you. If Biden was fighting early on in this process for real climate proposals, if he was fighting Manchin and Sinema publicly, you might see, you'd probably have more in this bill that we don't even know if this bill is going to go through. And this is a stripped down bill. By the way, if I'm Bernie, I'm voting no. I think this is a legacy defining moment for Bernie Sanders. He has been a doormat for the Democratic establishment. They have rigged 2 presidential elections against him. And I think he should vote no. And I don't want to hear about, well, Jordan, if he votes no, he'd be blocking something. Well, we got to get out of this. Something's better than nothing. We live in the richest country on earth. We live in a corrupt oligarchy. We live in the United Corporations of America. Maybe instead of just succumbing to the corruption, succumbing to the fact that lobbyists and political donors are stripping down overwhelmingly popular legislation to nothing, to basically neoliberal tax incentives, to means-tested programs, to paid family leave that goes through private insurers. Maybe instead of accepting just something is better than nothing, we should start demanding more. All right. So we'll have more because I'm going to kind of dissect some other articles. But I wanted to show you while I have you guys, and I am going to read super chats. Colin, if you could come on quickly. So Status Coup, for those of you that aren't members yet, Status Coup, we're primarily on the ground reporting. So yeah, we're in a studio when we're not on the ground, but most of the time we try to be on the ground reporting, which most people don't do. Particularly corporate media does not do. And when they're on the ground, they're reporting bullshit and reporting nonsense stories. We actually go out on the ground from covering worker strikes to the ongoing Flint water crisis, which, by the way, I told our Status Coup members working on an exciting new Flint cover-up story. So that should be out hopefully soon. That's going on in the background. So we are built through you, through membership. So a couple weeks ago, we started a new membership site. I don't want to get so technical and in the weeds, but basically the site that if you signed up as a member, let's say before October, you were signed up from our original member site. And we are now trying to get people to move over to the brand new membership site that has a lot more perks. So I think, Colin, what do you think? Should we play the video that we did?
Yeah, I think we could open. I have it right here, so that's a good opener.
So Colin and I recorded a video to kind of explain it to you. Take a look. Jordan and Colin with Status Coup. We're here to ask you to switch your Status Coup membership from our old membership system to a brand new membership system, which we've recently developed in the last few months. So what that means is you going in to StatusCoup.com, where you signed up originally, and canceling your membership if you're a member who signed up through StatusCoup.com. You would go in, cancel your membership, and then you would go to our brand new membership site through StatusCoup.com/join and re-sign up. Colin, why should people do this?
Yeah, so on our end, it'll make it so, like Jordan mentioned, everything is just more reliable as far as the payments and everything like that. And also it'll help us tech-wise as far as revamping the old site, because having our members on the StatusCoup.com is actually inhibiting some of the things we can do on the site. So this is a new external site, but also for you guys as members, the reason you want to switch over is because, one, it's a nice, clean, separate website that you can bookmark and have access to everything you need. It'll have new features such as forums and blogs. And one of the big things that we could never do before is having a member store, which includes things that it'll have exclusive merch. Maybe it'll say like Status Coup member 2021, or it'll be an exclusive design for a set that we released or something, where we'll sort of get feedback from members as well. But there's a lot of cool perks coming there your way that you don't want to miss out on.
So how do they do it?
So you just go to StatusCoup.com like normal. You would go to member sign in the top right corner, and then click subscriptions, and then just cancel your membership, and that'll get rid of your membership on the old site. And then, like you did before, just go to StatusCoup.com/join, which will now redirect you to the brand new StatusCoupMember.com, and you just follow the steps there to sign up, and you'll have all the same benefits plus some going in the future.
And to be clear, if for whatever reason you have issues, you could email us at info@StatusCoup.com, info@StatusCoup.com. This will be one of our top priorities to be responding to you and troubleshoot. When I say we, I mean Colin, because I'd probably give you the wrong directions. But info@StatusCoup.com if you have any issues. So like Colin said, first step, go to StatusCoup.com, member sign in, and you cancel. You click on subscriptions, cancel, and then once you do that, go to StatusCoup.com/join, and it should be a pretty straightforward process on how to sign up through the new site. We really would like as many of our members to do this so we could get everybody over to the new system. And if you have any questions or issues trying to do it, info@StatusCoup.com. Thanks.
And if you have issues signing out or canceling your membership on mobile, try it on desktop, because I know that could be an issue.
Thanks, guys. So in English, let me just explain to you guys so you understand. A main reason that we're doing this, and I don't really want to get so in the weeds because it'll fucking bore you. For payments for a membership site, you could use certain programs or you could use a plugin. So we used a plugin in the beginning of Status Coup called MemberPress. And as time went by, we started noticing payments were failing more and more. Not people choosing to cancel their memberships, but just payments not going through, whatever the case may be, banks not recognizing the payments, cards expiring, whatever. So we were seeing a more increased rate of payments failing to go through. We did a little investigating and realized, the plugin we have, maybe it was okay for the early days of Status Coup, but it's not the most reliable. So Jen, while she was still here, found this new program, which it's a lot more reliable. Payments go through a lot more reliably. We have a lot less failed payments. And obviously, to grow and be able to afford on-the-ground reporting, we need your payments to go through if you choose to support us as a member. And the other thing that Colin was describing is this new membership site is kind of self-contained. It's its own thing, StatusCoupMember.com. So we have a lot more functionality in terms of creating a membership store with exclusive merchandise, as well as other options. So what we want you to do, and we're going to post that video separately, so don't worry about so you could follow the steps in the video. We're going to post the video probably tomorrow morning. You would just go to StatusCoup.com. You would click on member sign in. Once you're signed in, go to subscriptions. You'll see a tab for cancel it. And then the second step is going to StatusCoup.com/join, and you could sign up brand new. I know for a lot of people, once people sign up for something, they don't want to have to do anything more. I understand it's a pain in the ass. I promise this new system we have is the one we're sticking with. So please, if you can, right after this live stream, don't just cancel and not re-sign up. We need you to cancel on the original site and then move over to our new site. And you could do that, StatusCoup.com/join. Am I missing anything, Colin?
No, I don't think so. And also as a side note, like one of the other things that this will give us the benefit, or one benefit this will give us, is because, like you mentioned, it's its own separate site. It actually gives us a lot more freedom once we have enough members switch to that, of stuff we can do with our own site. Like I've talked to our guy who works on the back end, and he said that just having that plugin be integrated into the site the way it is actually weighing down what some of the things we can and can't do with the site. So having this just be a separate thing is just going to be good for Status Coup and good for everyone who's a paying member. It's just going to be a better experience for you guys.
Oh, and that's a great question, because some people are signed up as patrons. That's okay too. We originally, when we started, we had a Patreon. Then we decided we didn't want to only be reliant on Patreon, because what happens if Patreon goes belly up? You know, we didn't want a third party to have all our members. We wanted it to be housed in our own website. So if you're a patron, this doesn't affect you. You could remain a patron if you want. My preference is to have everybody on our website. That's StatusCoupMember.com. So for the first priority is, if you are a Status Coup member through the original site, those folks canceling and moving over to the new site. But if you are a patron, you don't have to. If you want, as a patron, you could cancel at Patreon and come sign up at the membership site. Again, that would be going into Patreon, canceling, and moving over to StatusCoup.com/join. But as Patreon is far less important, we're not having tons of failed payments at Patreon. So that's the deal. And we're going to post this video separately. So if you're kind of unsure, we're going to post the video probably in the morning so you could see how to do it. I directly ask you to do it, because we cannot grow. We can't exist if we're having all these failed payments. And by the way, when we say failed payments, it's your stuff is secure. It's not going anywhere. But for whatever reason, the plugin we have is unfortunately just not strong enough. Banks, detect, or a lot of payments aren't going through for whatever the reason. This new program we have, we're seeing a lot more consistent payments going through, no problem. It's reliable, all that. So please, if you can, on the original site, again, that's StatusCoup.com.
And also,
cancel.
someone I mentioned, they're sponsored, so they can't really switch. If you have a situation like that, no worries. Like, we're still going to post all the members' content as normal on the website as well. So no worries if you physically can't switch because you were sponsored or anything like that.
Yeah. And by the way, if you don't know, Patreons get our member content too. So patrons, members get the same content. For the new membership site, it's StatusCoupMember.com, and you click on I think it's member content, right, Colin?
Correct. Yeah. You just bookmark it. Yeah.
Yeah. You said there's a landing page we could show people.
Yeah, I linked it. It's here, I'll link it again, but it's statuscoupmember.com/memberswitch, and that has the video that we just showed and stuff like that. So if you're confused on some of it, just go to that landing page until we publish the video. And it's
Can we show that?
Oh yeah, let me pull it up here. Actually, it would help if I typed it in, not as admin. So here's the site. So this is the member switch. So if you go to statuscoupmember.com/memberswitch, you'll come here and it has the video we just showed you explaining it, and then you just scroll down a little more and you can select which membership option you had before, or if you want to change it, you can do that too. And it's just a relatively quick process to continue signing up and everything like that.
And could you put the URL in the super chat again?
Yeah.
And again, we will post this tomorrow, and we're going to send emails out with this. So if you don't get it right now, you'll get it once you see the video. We're going to send out an email. We'll probably send out a text with the video too. So there's going to be multiple ways that you'll know how to cancel on the old site, sign up on the new site. And by the way, again, if you have any issues, we will answer at info@StatusCoup and try to troubleshoot it with you. Just to answer, there's one person who said, how about Status Coup post mutual aid organizations and providing local resource lists per state that help people pay rent, have access to food, organize with the homeless, or do we not do that? We're 2 people doing the job of 25. So unfortunately, I don't mean to be rude. I just do not have the resources. When we cover stories in communities, things like that, we always try and give resources, whether there's groups or ways you could help. But we don't, unfortunately, have the bandwidth to do all that, unfortunately. But just to remind you, if you're saying, Jordan, you're asking too much for me to cancel here and re-sign up here, let me just remind you of everything. And this is only a small portion of what we've done this year, but Colin mashed up a video for Thanksgiving. Here is just some of what you're supporting and why we need you to, if you're signed up on the original site, cancel there and sign up at the new site.
On the primary election, unseated a 16-year incumbent with all of the advantages and all of the money and all of the staff. And we did it with a 100% volunteer campaign.
I mean, they don't want an American lawyer, particularly one from their world, who went to Harvard Law School doing that kind of work. They're angry. You know, they're almost angrier at me than if I had actually taken a pickaxe and murdered 10 people.
I'm not sure mobilizing in Manchin's district, where Trump carried it by 30%, is actually what's going to move him on these policies.
Well, Manchin is, he's all of West Virginia, not a district. And I would remind you, Bernie won every county in West Virginia.
Everything is the problem. It's not just the lead service line. So why keep trying to put that in our brain so that we believe that, and people steady keep drinking the water or steady keep thinking that what y'all saying is true? It's not.
United States needs to wake up and realize that the Democrats are basically Republicans. They're all the same ilk.
And so you ask for it, you fight, but to just say, people have Flint fatigue and I can't get that. I thought, but this is what you said you would do. This is what you campaigned on. And now all of a sudden, you're tired of Flint?
They're trying to kick us to the curb, but we're not about to just get kicked to the curb. We are the heart and soul of Amazon.
The people in charge, their values of greed and exploitation, but the working people of Alabama, just like the working class people of New York, just like the working class people of Pennsylvania and all over the world, our values are solidarity and justice, and we will fight to the death for those values.
And we have demanded and fought for a government that works for all, not just the few.
Addressing these material conditions and the lifting people up so that they don't only not fall behind, but they actually get ahead. This is what this campaign is about.
How is these videos still coming out of the police like Ahmaud Arbery?
But what it means in the future for anybody that's a journalist like yourself or an environmental lawyer, I mean, basically this is, they've spent millions of dollars making their point that if you mess with Chevron, you're in trouble.
Like how long they tore these apartments, these low-income apartments. Now they got this nice high-rise with these condos, and so who's going to afford to live there? You know, you pushed all those people out.
You have independent journalists who come out here who are reporting the truth, because a lot of people don't trust media outlets.
Hey, how you doing? Mind if I ask you a couple questions? This is your community. Can I ask you how you feel about this?
You have about 2 seconds before you be arrested.
For what?
Leave.
I'm asking you.
Leave.
I'm asking you a question, man. All right, I'm going.
Bro, I lost too many homeboys, bro, to murders that got swept under the rug. In these last 2 years, not even just alone in the years counting before that. Nah, I done lost too many boys that didn't even see 21.
Joe Biden, you said that if we get you into office, we elect you into office, you got our back. You said, black community, I got your back. You had my back, I got your back. Then you just said about a month ago, said that you're gonna build the country from the bottom up, from the middle out.
If back to normal means we're back to being underpaid, it means we're back to being worked like dogs, it means that they're back to harassing homeless people, you can keep your fucking normal.
So that's just, we haven't done the full 2021 mashup, which will be longer, of all our on the ground reporting, but that was just something we put together for Thanksgiving, or Colin put together for Thanksgiving. So thank you, Colin. But again, really, really important just on the technical end for us to maintain our Status Coup membership and grow our Status Coup membership for you to switch over. So Colin has put it in the super chat, Status Coup, StatusCoupMember.com/member switch. We'll put that also in the description under this video. If you can, if you're a member, please do the switch like right after this live stream. And again, if you have any questions, we will answer them at info@statuscoup.com. We're also going to send an email. I think tomorrow we'll send the email with directions if you don't, if you have any issues. So that's all I got. Let me read some super chats. Colin, am I missing anything on that?
No, I think that was everything that I could think of.
Yep. And again, if you're moving over to the brand new site, will help us not only grow our membership, but also give you more perks as a member. So that's part of why we moved over to this new site. Super chats. Cheryl Tyler, $10. Brilliant diagnosis, Jordan. Your insights are always exactly right. Why? Thank you. Das Bo's Fleisch, $4.99. The economy isn't coming back. Trump is. I began to wonder if the Democrats want him to be reelected. If the election were held today, I think Trump would beat Biden, unfortunately. I think that's where we're at, honestly. And Biden would deserve to lose. He's not delivering. He's coming up with bullshit reasons and excuses and rationalizations. And the media is twisting themselves into a pretzel to try and diagnose why Biden's popularity is so low and the proposals are so popular. Maybe because he's not actually giving you he's not executing on the proposals, and they're stripping down all the proposals, as I told you. D-Bal, the Black Panther, $20. I appreciate your hard work, and I miss Jen. Heart, keep pushing, my brother. Thank you for the support. I really, really appreciate it. Understand about Jen. We're just going to keep doing our best here. Lunar Guardian, $4.99. I appreciate all the hard work you do, Status Coup. Thank you. Hysteric Raider, $5. But our almighty stock market, God is pleased. Isn't that enough? That's all these guys care about. True. Neil Armitage, £8.99. Agree with your analysis on Biden. Why don't Dem progressives challenge more when Manchin gets away with it so easily? Same here in the United Kingdom. Progressives in opposition ditching progressive policies. Hey, I asked when I was interviewing Ro Khanna, why don't you guys go together and hold a rally on Joe Manchin's doorstep? Why aren't you pressuring him in West Virginia? Why aren't you in Arizona pressuring him? told me, I don't think that would make a difference. Why aren't you activating your base of progressives who are looking for you to fight? They'll follow you if you're actually fighting. Why aren't, in the interviews progressives were doing on CNN and elsewhere, why aren't you pushing back that these are moderates when they're actually corrupt extremists? We got a whole lot of non-answers and bad answers from the progressives, who seem to be more focused on trying to be diplomatic and negotiate inside baseball with Manchin, Sinema, and Biden. So at this point, yeah, I'm not defending the squad. I think Bernie should vote no. And I think they should be fighting because they have the people on their side. The people would be on their side if they started aggressively fighting. Manchin, Sinema, Biden, not accepting rump roast. All right, folks, that's all I got. We will, again, be on the lookout. We'll send out an email. If you're on the Status Coup email list, you'll get that email. If you are on our text list, you'll also get a text message. So we'll send out probably in the morning directions on how you can cancel your membership on the old site and move over to the new site. You could try doing it before then. And if, definitely try when we log off. Again, it's Status Coup what is it, Colin?
StatusCoupMember.com/member switch. If you want to rewatch that video, otherwise just StatusCoup.com/join to get to the brand new site.
Yes. So Status Coup.
StatusCoupMember.com/ yeah, I'll paste it in the chat here. It's also in the description below.
Okay, great. So yeah, it's right in the description. So definitely, if you're a member, go to that after this. Cancel on the old site, switch to the new site, and you're going to be hearing this from us quite a lot over the next few days and weeks. Where do you go to cancel your old membership? Henry, it's right in the description. Go to StatusCoupMember.com/member switch. Click on that, and it'll show you the video Colin and I just did, which will give you the directions. Thank you for watching, and I will see you probably tomorrow. Bye-bye.